Hello there, and welcome back to part 2 of drawing all 64 of my original characters. Though it's not required to watch part 1, it will be linked below. Now, without further ado, let's get to the first character. Okay, so starting off pretty strong with this one, Felicity is part of my fantasy world Zenadia. At least, that's what I call it. And she's what's called a fae. They don't live completely in the corporal world. Instead, they live in their own little fae realm thing. And because of that, they look and interact with the world kind of like ghosts. At least, like the world. Because Felicity can no longer enter the fae realm, she is sadly doomed to stay in the world of elves and the stars, unable to interact with those she holds dear. Now, fae have a lot of animalistic features, and Felicity specifically was inspired by Chinese dragons. I think her design is really fun. It's a little more unique than I'd say a lot of mine are, with the blue skin. The eyes, I actually do a lot of weird stuff with the eyes, so maybe that's not quite so unique when compared to my own characters. I do really like her silhouette and how I feel like out of all my OCs, she'd be the easiest to pick out of a crowd. I had a really fun time rendering her blue scaly skin, but I was also really nervous while making this piece because I don't think I've ever drawn like a ghost-like character, especially since this is my first time doing like an actual finished drawing of Felicity. I've only done character sketches before. So it was interesting finding different ways of shading her and making her contrast with the world around her. Felicity is really sweet, but she's also really shy when it comes to strangers, even more so than most of her kind. She lives in this like spirit woods, which is basically like a holy ground, which I may talk about later along with my OC Zed in a future episode, but I won't say too many spoilers for that one. Alright, moving on to the next OC, we have Avalon. So Avalon is more of a historical figure in Zenadia. His story is in lore and doesn't really take place during either of the main time periods. He's more of like referred to. Say if a character is walking through a hall, you might see his paintings, or he'd probably be referenced in conversation sometimes because he is a great king of old. He's kind of the guy who set a lot of the problems in motion. Though it was unintentional, the decay, which is the main antagonistic force, is partially his fault for spreading so large. He conquered much of Zenadia and started the Zenadian Empire, ruled by the Star People, which is what he is. The reason for the decay spreading, and this is kind of a work in progress, so keep that in mind, but the reason that the decay has spread so much since his rule is because he gets rid of the common practice of light crafting, which is the main magic system in Zenadia, which the Star People use. But he gets rid of it because the archmages were getting way too powerful. They were taking over the government, infiltrating the inner workings of the empire, it was getting corrupt, and by extension, everything was getting corrupt. Other problems that I don't really have too much time to deep dive into, but basically they didn't realize that the practice of their light crafting, and by extension their religion, was actually keeping away the decay. And moving on to our next character, this is Carissa, and she is Avalon's wife. Carissa is, in my head, she's really nice. I don't have, a lot of lore for her yet, but, I'll share what I do have. Unfortunately, she is very sickly. I won't go into too many details about this one, but she's also kind of a reason that Avalon went off the rails after he kind of got rid of the archmages. And now moving on to kind of how I made the art, I decided that a really cool idea would be to have them look like oil paintings. So yeah, I did that. So I made them a frame, and my idea was this is them sitting in some hall, their paintings hung up in a hall. But I guess I could have worded that better. Yeah. To make the art, I For the most part, I think I kept the line art pretty much the same, but I went in with a lot of textured brushes after the fact. And also, I'm pretty sure while rendering the clothes, like adding more textures to the clothes with more painterly brushes. And yeah, I really like how they turned out. Pretty cool, like oil painting vibes. Let's move on to the next characters. Cal is the main character of my truck gang. I made him with the idea in my mind of like a very positive main character. This is mostly because a lot of my main characters in my stories are not like super positive or extroverted like he is. But I mean, I do kind of know that, like, especially in anime, I've seen where the characters are like more upbeat and positive, so maybe he doesn't seem too different from them, but I don't know, I think he's fun. His room is full of pictures and sketches, not done by him, he probably got them out of magazines or asked someone else to draw them, but they're full of old cars and trucks. He likes to play the guitar, and in the picture he's playing it for his cat Gus, who I love. I love Gus, he's my favorite. And Cal, you know, like I said, he's the main character, and he takes the other two, Erica, who was in the last video, and Jefferson, who I'll get to right after this. And he basically pulls them along on his, you know, random adventures, and I don't know, they just have a lot of fun. Like I said in the last video when talking about Erica, his world is kind of grungy, sort of post-apocalyptic. It's not concrete as of now. I just like drawing these characters, and the story is, you know, in construction, I guess you could say. Jefferson is Cal's best friend and kind of the tech guru in the team. He's definitely the quietest of the trio. He and Erica kind of keep Cal in check when they go on their, you know, their little adventures. They're probably keeping him from doing anything, you know, too stupid, usually. But Jefferson also has a problem with feeling overshadowed by his older brother Trent, who I also drew in the last video. Link below if you want to check it out. Though Trent is very supportive of his younger brother. He's not trying to overshadow his younger brother, but sometimes Jefferson can't really help the feeling. I don't have too much to say about the drawing as it's pretty simple, so let's move on to the next character. Alright, these next ones are all going to be older OCs. I'm putting them at the end in case you don't really want to see the older ones, or if you do want to see them. Yeah. Next videos aren't going to have as many older OCs, but you know, I wanted to draw them, so yeah. So starting off, Cedric is an older OC of mine, and the next 5 of these OCs will be from an old story I made quite a bit ago. So since there wasn't much character to Cedric, I'll give you the short rundown. Cedric is Sci-fi's cousin, and Sci-fi is like my old Sona, who as of recording this is still my profile picture, but I'm probably gonna change it soon. Because, like, I don't actually use her anymore. And he was also the heir to the throne of one of the main worlds that the story takes place on. The world's name is Taran. It's a more sci-fi futuristic world, and the people, or more accurately furries I guess, had different energies that gave them different powers. So there was Lift, which was telekinesis and flight, defense, so like shields and stuff. Attack, this was mostly like energy blasts, and also probably like increased strength and stuff. Stealth, like invisibility, silencing powers, and minor disguises. Radar, which included better senses of smell, eyesight, etc., and also things like echolocation, and like a literal radar almost. Healing, you know, that's self-explanatory. And finally, transportation, which included things like speed, dashing, and teleportation. That's also the power that Sci-fi had. Alright, moving on to the next OC. Sylvan was kind of scrapped in the middle of me creating this way back when, but I believe she was supposed to be this healer, and yeah, I didn't have much planned for her. But while this is playing, I'll give you more about the story that she and the others belong to. So Kadon was the second world that this takes place on. It's a more medievally fantasy place, but it doesn't have much magic. Its main role is where Sci-fi and her friend Drake, they're kind of the main characters, but it's where they were sent to because of the antagonist Ares, who usurps the throne and takes the people of Taran's powers away. Mr. Arlie is probably my favorite character out of the bunch, and honestly, I still want to use him sometimes, though probably with a different design and story to live in. He's the grumpy old guy who ends up taking in Sci-fi, which again, she was kind of the main character, I know, yeah. The joke with him is that he's super old. So old that no one actually knows how old he is because they say he was already old by the time they met him, even the other elderly. Drake and Sci-Fi were sent to Kadon using transportation powers of teleportation in the hopes that one day they would be able to come back and free Taran from the grasp of Ares, the antagonist. Drake was Sci-Fi's best friend, and his arc is that he was a very cowardly character that would later risk it all to save others. I really liked Drake, but sadly, as with many of these characters, I haven't given him a real story that I'm proud to put him in. But it's nice to think that I may make a better project someday to put them in. Alright, and to finish it off, we have Ares, or as me and my friends would call him, the big bad bird boy. Honestly, I think his design is my favorite out of the bunch. I'll put an old piece I did of him a while ago, but I think the robotic bird wing and the scar in his eyes make him look very visually interesting. But yes, Ares usurped the throne of Taran and seized the powers of its people so he wouldn't have to worry about an uprising, which sent many, such as Cedric, into hiding and sent others to send their kids through outer space and time in hopes of stopping him. Yeah. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. These first few at the end may have some of my older OCs, but I really enjoyed redrawing them. It was fun to revisit them. And by episode 4, I think I'll actually be done with drawing all of the older OCs. And we'll pretty much only have up-to-date OCs if you're more interested in that. All the previous videos will be linked, and I will hopefully remember to put the next episodes in a pinned comment. Also, if you're interested in checking out more of my art or seeing more of the art from this video, please go check out my Instagram. It should also be linked. And yeah, bye!